Welcome to this lesson on dual language learners for the North Carolina Foundations of Early Learning and Development. Now, supporting dual language learners in North Carolina Foundations is not considered a domain, but it is an important aspect of development for children in North Carolina because a growing number of children in North Carolina speak a language other than English at home. This section begins on page 149 in the Foundations book. Now, you should have your Foundations document with you during this lesson, as different page numbers will be referenced, and you'll want to look at those pages with us. Now, dual language learners describes children who speak a language other than English at home. Sometimes these learners are described as English language learner, second language learner, limited English learner, to name a few. But the Foundations document has chosen to use the term dual language learner. This term highlights the fact that the child is learning two languages or becoming bilingual, which is an essential consideration for teachers and caregivers. It is also very important for caregivers to understand how children who are becoming bilingual and have a primary language other than English develop in order to support their progress on the skills and knowledge described in Foundations. Some children are exposed to both languages from birth, while others are exposed to one language at birth and then begin to learn English when they enroll in childcare or preschool. The process of learning a second language is very complex, particularly when children are learning a second language at the same time they are learning their home language. In doing so, children will often use the language they know best when they try to speak the second language and combine the two languages into one sentence. This is called code switching. Now, learning takes time. Even though it may seem like children are learning the second language like sponges, it actually takes years to learn how to use it in different contexts and situations. One myth that educators sometimes hear is the idea that children will learn the second language more quickly, like English, if they are in settings that use only English. But research has shown that children actually learn English more effectively if they are in settings where both their home language and English are used. To accommodate for these children in the classroom, it would be appropriate to have all printed materials and/or labels in both English and the home language throughout the classroom. It would also be helpful to use picture cards with the children so they can understand conversations and be able to participate with their friends in the classroom. Researchers have found that children go through 4 stages as they learn a second language. Please take a look at page 151 at the chart that explains in detail the 4 stages. These stages are home language use, nonverbal period, telegraphic and formulaic speech, and productive language use. Caregivers who understand the dual language learning process and can recognize these 4 stages of dual language learning can support the children's language development more effectively. Now, notice on page 152 the importance of families, and on the page 153 there are details about dual language learners and standards. Let's now watch a 7.5-minute video about how to support English language learners in the preschool classroom. Watch closely as you will then answer a few questions about the video. Let's see if we can get this video to come up for us. Here we go.
Most classrooms include children who speak a language other than English. Preschool professionals are challenged to work effectively with young children who may not understand much English at all. How can teachers best support the English language learners in their classrooms? Bilingual education expert Dr. Ann Anderberg offers us great suggestions for working with English language learners and their families.
Teachers do not need to speak the native language in order to support its development and also to help transfer those skills to English. The underlying skills that children acquire in their first language are similar.
We have a lot of parents that speak a variety of languages other than English or Spanish at our school. For example, Urdu, Persian, Arabic, Chinese. What I notice about the English language learners at the beginning of the school year is that they are nervous and scared, but as are all the rest of the children. They're probably a little more quiet though than the English speakers, and also very observant and watching what other kids are doing so that they know what's coming next, and watching what I'm doing so that they can get any type of clue that they possibly can from my gestures or from the picture schedules that I'm offering, so that they know what's coming next and so that they can learn the routine.
It wouldn't be unusual for a child to arrive in a classroom not speaking any English in an all-English environment. It's very natural for students to engage in a silent period. During that silent period, what's really happening is they are acquiring the sounds of that new language.
That's how you go to the park on the bicycle? Yeah. Yeah?
Most preschool teachers are very good at extending talk and trying to elicit conversations with children so that they draw out more and more information by asking questions, by finishing off sentences for children, by just helping them to create more language.
But these are different kind of scissors. Girls. They're girl scissors? What makes it a girl scissor?
Ultimately, what we want is for the children to be talking to themselves, talking to us, talking to each other, and using the language themselves.
Oh, sí, es una pizza de apple.
It is. It's a pizza of apple, but you call that an apple pie.
Two strategies that are very powerful in oral language development are parallel talk and self-talk. Parallel talk is when I am sitting next to a child and I am basically narrating what that child is doing, like a play-by-play description of their activity.
You put that on top of the girl's head, and you put the legs under the girl's body.
Self-talk is actually doing that for what I'm doing.
Open, close, open, close, open, close, stop.
And by doing that, it makes a very tight link between the language and the actions.
Pato amarillo. In English, yellow duck. We have different techniques that help them to use more of the English language, and also encouraging them to play together in the dramatic play area.
Another effective strategy is what's called the total physical response technique.
Total physical response strategies include using your body. If you're going to be teaching about verbs, do the actions that you want them to learn.
Total physical response, or TPR, builds on the relationship between language and movement. Total physical response teaches children language in the same natural way that parents model language to their young children. As the teacher speaks, she acts out the language to make meaning clear and expects no oral response from the child. Another helpful strategy for supporting English language learners is to learn a little about the children's native language, including a few key words and phrases.
This book is in English and this book is in Spanish. What's happening on the cover of these books?
They're giving besos.
They're getting kisses, right? Besos is kiss in Spanish.
Some languages may share cognates. That can be a very powerful tool for children to learn vocabulary. True cognates are words that have the same meaning in both languages and are basically the same. So for example, the word animal and animal in Spanish, the same word, they're cognate, they have the same meaning. However, oftentimes if we don't point it out to them, they don't make that connection. Once it's explicitly explained, the children can begin to make those connections for themselves.
Teachers can support families in their understanding that their child's learning their first language will build a solid foundation for learning English.
Native language proficiency is very important for children because they can transfer the skills that are involved in that to their second language. Families should be encouraged to support that first language and be assured that it will support the child's English language acquisition at the appropriate time.
鸭子。
不是鸭子，是小鸟。
Families are encouraged to engage in oral language and read to their child in whatever language is spoken in the home. One great way to encourage parents to do this is with rhymes and songs in their native language. With support from her family and teachers, the child learns to speak both languages and is preparing to read and write in both languages.
At the end of the day, the most important thing are the best practices of very playful interaction with children around storytelling, storybook reading, rhyming, oral language, really rich conversations. Those are the same things that will help second language learners in their first language as well.
So I don't know about you, but I really learned a lot from that video. Like total physical response. I had never heard of that TPR approach, and that was very helpful and useful for me. I wish I had two languages when I was young, so I could now be a dual language person. But I'm not, and I think it's just so exciting to be able to work with dual language learners. Now we'd like for you to just take a few minutes and answer a few questions listed in the lesson about the video we've just watched. And then we'll return to the Foundations book after you have answered those few questions on the video that you just watched. Thank you, and we'll see you back here in a few moments.